Let's do one quick problem on fiscal policy FRQ, and this is again a very interesting kind of question asked in AP Macroeconomics. Now the question here says the following information: the current GDP is 75 billion below full employment, right? So note, this is very important, it is below full employment. Identify the output gaps, draw ADAS model. If the MPC is 0.75, find the minimum tax to close the gap and illustrate the change on the graph. So first of all, there would be a graph between price level and real GDP, and this graph would show the aggregate demand and the aggregate supply in short run. Now when there is a recessionary cycle, this is the long run aggregate supply. In order to close this gap, we would have to increase the aggregate demand. So that's few of the things that we have identified. Now the question says the MPC is 0.75 and the current GDP is $75 billion. So what I can do is I can simply write it as the change in the aggregate demand would be equal to the change in the tax multiplied by the tax multiplier, right? Now change in the aggregate demand is how much? $75 billion. What is the change in the tax? That I have to find out. And how do I calculate the tax multiplier? Tax multiplier is nothing but minus MPC divided by MPS, which gives me minus MPC divided by 1 minus MPC, that is minus 0.75 divided by 1 minus 0.75, and that gives me minus 0.75 divided by 0.25, that is minus 3, right? So multiplied by minus 3. That's how I calculate. Now solving this, my change in tax would be 75 divided by minus 3, which is 25 negative. Negative means cutting down the taxes, right? So how much taxes would be cut down? Cut down $25 billion taxes, right? And the change on the graph would be shift in the aggregate demand. So this was one of the important aspects that we have understood for this kind of questions. Interesting kind of FRQs, but most importantly, when you are asked to find out tax multiplier, it is minus MPC by MPS. If you are asked to calculate a spending multiplier, it is 1 upon MPS, which is 1 upon 1 minus MPC, and that is the spending multiplier. So note, there is a difference between tax multiplier and spending multiplier. Don't get confused. We had done another problem with the spending multiplier in a separate question. So just go back and check that in case you have questions or confusions, right? So this was for today. Stay tuned, and below are the links for complete video tutorials for AP Micro and Macroeconomics. Stay tuned.